He's a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, the United States, a top college. After all this, instead of pursuing his American dream, he comes back and doesn't choose Bangalore, doesn't choose Bombay, but comes to a tier 2 city and builds one of the largest global customer bases in the world with the topmost logos, names like Salesforce and HP.
I just am an engineer who tries to solve problems as they come out.
So, Alok, here you are working with the best of the global companies, and your company is across US, Canada, Australia, Singapore, India, working with partners from Silicon Valley. How do you manage this culture transitions across so many continents?
If you put people first, they will take care of the rest. The challenge mostly is that you don't trust your people enough and try to micromanage it.
So here you are, you're leading a team of 1,000 or odd people. That's a massive number of people who are looking up to you. What is your strategy to take on the challenges of AI implementation inside Fortune companies?
So the challenge there is like earlier when a new phone used to come out, the old phone used to start slowing up. And that is still the biggest challenge. So when a new version of the AI comes out, the old version starts misbehaving a bit.
What are the top 3 things you look for when you hire somebody or when you recruit a talent? Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. It's a huge honor for me when I have someone who has literally shattered myths about talent and about how to build great companies. We all sit here in Silicon Valley and look at unicorns and decacorns and we build stereotypes. But I'm going to bring on somebody who is in a tier 2 city in India and he has got one of the largest customer bases with the topmost logos in the world, all under his belt. With huge honor, I'd like to invite Mr. Alok Ram Sisaria to Pitch Cafe podcast. He's a legend in his own right from IIT Delhi. He's ranked 20th in the exam, and we all know what that means. We have a genius here who also knows to ace his exams. But hey, not just that, he's a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, the United States, again, a top college. After all this, instead of pursuing his American dream, he comes back and doesn't choose Bangalore, doesn't choose Bombay, but comes to a tier 2 city and builds one of the largest global customer bases in the world with the topmost logos, names like Salesforce and HP. And what are the other logos? You've got all the logos here. I know I'm looking at Snowflake and probably other logos here, but I'll hear it from you. So to unpack this journey, let's just bring on Alok. Alok, welcome to Pitch Cafe podcast.
Thank you, Vila. Thank you so much. And I think you're being too kind. I'm not a legend of any kind. I just am an engineer who tries to solve problems as they come now. And the reason I moved back to Chandigarh way back in 91, partly was because I had a late life growing up here. And partly because, I had promised my mom that I just need to go to the US to get a master's. And I'll try out India and see what we can do. And at that time also, we were building software which is used by the furniture industry worldwide. So it was possible that we could build world-class software sitting here in India. And that those times you have to remember there was no internet. So we would have to buy a computer to get our mail. And we had to ship software on floppy disks. So out of those kind of sophistication, we were building world-class software sitting 3 people in a row. And that sort of set the template for me that, hey, you can do anything anyway in the computer revolution. I personally feel that you make your choices and then make sure that you deliver on your choices and solve the problems that come along the way. And that's what we try to do with the ZT.
I was looking at your mission statement. It's AI driven, agent first, business aligned. You create such a cutting edge technology company with the talent from tier 2 cities. So, what is your secret sauce? What does your execution stand for? What do you do differently at Graziti?
I think the first difference is that we always put people first. You always feel, this distance between ownership and employee. And in fact, I wrote a blog post about it. There should be a difference. Unfortunately, we put the employee at the front of the risk that the business, any business has. But rather than putting the employee at the back, and the person chose to do a job because they didn't want it done. And make sure that the workplace is something that they are proud to be So we always taken that by people first. Not only do we pay well, but we also take care of our people. We've been ranked best great place to work 6 or 7 times in a row now, which is unheard of. Primarily because we put our people first. So that I think is the only differentiation. In terms of building a technology first company, I think we were lucky. We got a Marketo as an early customer. And our experience so, gave us expertise in seeing how company grew from a 10 $20 million runway to a $200 million runway before they got acquired. And I had good people who understood and transformed that into services as well as products. So we used to build communities. You're one of the first people to build communities on the Salesforce platform.
Yeah.
And that allowed us to sell that community as if a service, if you will, to a large number of customers. Similarly, use a search package, which allowed us to launch Search Unified. So we put our people first, they take care of business.
You also have, yeah, you also have a product Synergify. What is that? It's not only Search Unify, but also Synergify. You built several connectors in various services. This is so unique. So tell us a little bit about how technology wise you're innovative. You're dealing with tier two talent, and you're connecting AI first technologies of the top global companies. How do you make that happen?
So one of the things is that I believe computer science is a search for structure, right? We look for structure in data. Okay, this
Yeah,
is a structure we have, and here is the way you can optimally use that structure.
yeah,
And I came actually my personal career have been US. I started with a EDA software company. I was building products. Then I joined a product company selling products into the US market.
oh,
Then I got into consulting, and then finally I came to services. A product is nothing but a abstraction of a service offering, and we would solve these
yeah.
problems of customers all the time. So we were connecting engineering and sales, which
Mm.
is Jira and Salesforce, to lots of customers. And we said, hey, here's something that we can big and sell as a product, and we have now I think close to 100 customers using Synergify. Similarly, for search, I was using full text search. Original thinking was that search is a fine like databases, Ajax. So, we should invest in it. We kept investing in it for our customers. We were providing some great business outcomes. So then the opportunity presented itself, in fact, with Salesforce, and we were the first customer for Search Unified. We were ready to package it and productize it. I think the market rewards those businesses differently. And
Yeah.
we figured out that within the same set of time, it's not too hard to build the capabilities for each one of them. But for the longest time, the valley has been on what rocks.
Yeah, wonderful. So Alok, here you are working with the best of the global companies, and your company is across US, Canada, Australia, Singapore, India, and you're working with partners from Silicon Valley. How do you manage this culture transitions across so many continents?
Again, it's in the end, people run it up. And our growth story is been fairly unique. While there's some strategic direction that I provide, but a lot of our expansion globally has happened because people wanted to expand it. In fact, our US office, why we were working with US customers, was because this VP of sales wanted to come work for us. So I said, okay, let's open an office in Silicon Valley. One of my, function heads used to move to Sydney, so we have an Australia office. A bunch of my employees moved to Toronto, and so I now have a Canadian office. And similarly in Singapore, Singapore was more driven by a customer. So customer said, I need 3 people here in Singapore. So you open Singapore office. So if you put people first, they will take care of the rest. The challenge mostly is that you don't trust your people enough and you try to micromanage. So we've been lucky, I would say, to some degree, but we've also been always putting our people first to take the right decisions for the right reasons.
Okay, so Alok, I can't ignore the fact that you're an IITian. So tell me, what did the alma mater teach you? What is it like learning at an IIT? What are the things you take with you along the challenges and successes in life, failures in life? What is it like being an IITian?
See, and at that point in time, also, we are now 30 years ago, a lot of resources were not there in their homes, right? So, coming from CSC mindset households, for the first time, when I was doing my final year project, the lab says, here the keys to the lab, work where. The set of people that you work with, you had open conversations and you trust, I think, trusting people to make the right and realizing that people are fundamentally very similar.
Alok, we can't forget the fact that India hosted India AI Impact Summit. It was such a massive news headline. It literally sent shockwaves all around the world when all of the AI leaders stood on the stage, on the podium alongside Prime Minister Modi, and they raised hands as a team. So these are very unusual times, and Fortune 500 companies are having an unusual problem. The technology is accelerating so fast, and the human beings are finding it hard to give tasks and non-deterministic tasks to AI. So here you are, you're leading a team of thousand or odd people. That's a massive number of people who are looking up to you. What is your strategy to take on the challenges of AI implementation inside Fortune companies, inside your company, and the Fortune clients you work for? What is your strategy?
So AI, it is like every other transformation technology. Like I lived through three transformations that everybody talks about. The Y2K problem, the Lehman Brothers crash to it. So every technology revolution will adapt and form and influence us in lots of ways.
Yeah.
And we are no different, right? And I think from if I talk from let me talk from two different perspectives. In the products business, we have to make sure that we deliver deterministic outcomes
Yes.
using probabilistic software like AI.
Yeah.
So the challenge there is like, I don't know if you remember this, but earlier when a new phone used to come out, the old phone used to start showing up. And
Yeah.
that used to be the biggest challenge we would have. So when a new version of the AI comes out, then the old starts misbehaving. You have to interpret that and be sure you plan for it so that your customers are not impacted. And you have to stay on the cutting edge. For example, you were wicked to see you. So we were running off on cloud GPUs for our customers. But then we started working with some more secure customers. And they said we can't even have anything on the public cloud. People are moving back to data centers being hosted inside their offices. So we bought some GPUs, started hosting some very multimodal models, and they're giving us amazing eyes. So you have to stay on top of the technology stack if you want to
Yeah.
figure out how to service your customer. And that, if you think we create an opportunity for on the services side as well, there's so much technology innovation happening. People need somebody who can interpret in their context and see what works. Like companies are not just suddenly report, and you've seen those examples, I think in the public media example. It went to one extreme and now it's coming back to the middle somehow. And most companies will not be as direct, right? They will want to trust and that the system that they are getting to replace what they have will actually work returnistically. And they are ready to take the hit on not enjoying a full promised financial benefit because the risk is too hard, right? There were lots of those initial horror stories from airlines, from support portal. For example, you can't afford your customer set to go down. And that's the job of companies like us to interpret technology for our customers, make sure they are ever exposed to that risk. And that also opens up a whole bunch of opportunities of interpreting new technologies. AI governance is now a service line. We three of the leading AI governance tools providers, and we are now looking at partnerships to breathe that service also into our customers, apart from the regular services we offer. So on to one. And on the service side, the challenge is how do you create efficiency so that we can pass on those efficiencies to our customers and they can get more done with the same dollar. So as soon as we, learn something, we try and share that with our customer base.
Wonderful. So, entrepreneurship is in your blood. I can tell. You're growing with so much ease. You're expanding with so much ease. I have a question about that. You mentioned the logos which you're very proud of. Do you want to reiterate them? I have a follow on question about that.
So the entire marketing automation and technology space was something we probably have set up marketing automation for in the top 100 tech companies, either directly or through a partnership. People have technology needs, they will look for partners who can deliver and who can predictably deliver within time and within budget with the right set of technology skills. So we essentially we add about 70 to 80 logos every year, and we're not pushy sales cycle. And most of my sales, interestingly, is based in India, not in the US.
Wow.
We out deliver,
Yeah.
if you will, on our
Yeah.
promise. And we always try and make sure that in every interaction, this is what I call the win-win-win philosophy, right? My
Yes.
job is to take care of my people, right? People's job is to take care of the customers.
Yes.
Right? And if we take care of the customers take care of my difference. But there are lots of instances where, one of our employees, he was getting married already and he had like a delivery and he is ready to, he was just able to do and boss called, he was working on it. right? On his own. You get commitment both ways. I mean, people take ownership, which like is not funny. So you have to take care of home so that they, what they are looking forward to in life, provide for. I mean, there's probably over a few hundred people who bought their own homes here in the Chandigarh region.
Amazing. It's incredible. It's incredible. I can feel how much of compassion you have for employees. But there's one thing which you're doing right also, which is you're hiring the right people. So coming to that question, I do want to ask you, what are the top three things you look for when you hire somebody or when you recruit a talent? But uh, coming from the United States, I want to ask you, what are the top three things you look for in a salesperson? Because you've captured all the logos on this side of the planet, and you're also capturing logos in Southeast Asia. So you clearly know how to hire the right salespeople. So we can start with, how do you hire the right salespeople, the top three things, and then we can talk about generic traits of a good employee. What are the things you look?
I think there are in salespeople, and we have to look at the talent pool that we are fishing in.
Right.
We are not ready for, we typically find that people who do well are people who have strong negotiations, who are able to talk to customers, and not strong prospectations. Our US salespeople, however, slightly different. They need to be good at prospecting. They need to have stronger, more conventional, because they're selling more conventionally. Similarly, in different countries, if you look at Southeast Asia or Europe, they're much more relationship, unlike the US. So there you look for people who have existing relationships in key accounts, and those are the kind of people that you want to hire on sales. But if the sales ID is very small part, but the guy actually owning delivery on the customer services side, and their attitude is the biggest skill, if you ask me. And we look for, obviously, today we are looking for more communication skills, because as AI makes the development part things easier,
Yeah.
earlier it could be a combination of attitude, technical skills, and communication skills. But
Yeah.
the focus still right now, like somebody wants to do well, you still got to wait for them to do well, right? But they have to
Yeah.
want to do well in their life. That's the key skill to look. When COVID back in 2020, we might
Yeah.
have had 150 youngsters into it plus. And those guys are now, core fighters, they now lead the. Because you were saying, okay, if we go down, we go down. Right?
Yeah.
All of us will go down. But if you don't man for expansion, we will never grow up. So we
Wow.
will started like even clear with the this entire Genia layoff situation. We are highly lesser to fill our pressure layer, and the good part is since nobody else is hiring, we find slightly better people, more motivated people, and hopefully they will work harder towards making this animal with our connects.
That's amazing. I really endorse this approach, people centric approach, even during the Gen AI boom. So, Alok, who's one of your favorite CEOs who's getting it right in the AI boom? Like the AI boom or AI bubble, or with everything thrown at them, which other CEO other than yourself you feel is doing the right thing with people, talent, and technology?
So actually, to answer on the broad side, I have a little chief, because I know Lily Ravan and Sasson very well. They're my cousin. So they're doing an amazing job in what they chose to do, and it's taken them a bit, but they would also feature very strongly in the Indian AI at Global AI Summit. And the other one I think who will do really well is the Anthropic guy. Again, they're top of the season right now,
Yeah.
but they came in from behind. They have their unit economics are much better than the others. And they're actually, so if you think about it, the big tech players figured out that they had to go to the application, right, to make money. They can't just be a technology.
Yeah.
I think with the cloud over, cloud, this thing, they've gone and given the tools to a bunch of people to say, okay, use it to build your applications. And their unit cost economics are not as bad as the other players next space. So they've done a great job. If you ask me, some the dog coming in from behind, and it used to be Microsoft. My should used to be number two, and then they would come in and become the leader. But Google has done something similar. So
Amazing, absolutely amazing. So, on that note, I do want to ask a few quick questions, being mindful of your time. So, you can answer real quick, whatever comes to your heart. So, how do you see the balance between human creativity and AI automation in the next 5 years?
it's going to keep shifting towards AI. Human creativity will become more and more concentrated, if you will. You think it, and they will do it.
Wonderful. And which gets disrupted first in the AI era? Software engineering or knowledge work in marketing?
Software engineering.
Software engineering. Okay. Well, that's right. You got that one right. What's the single most important skill a 17-year-old student must learn in 2026?
I think the single most important thing is to keep learning. It's the only thing I can say. He's achieving very fast. It was true in our age. It's true 10 years ago. And it's very true for the new generation.
Wonderful. And you are supposed to be very well read. What is your favorite book? What's the book that has influenced you a lot?
Because in my life, it's been different books. I can tell you when I first wanted to get into consulting, it was a book by $1 billion consulting. It's when I
Oh,
wanted to be a marketing, it was a book by famous authors on positioning. And when got into more as put I would say the leadership slash spirituality. I have been most influenced by writing autobiography of Yogi, still current in how Yogananda Paramahansa lays out. And he wrote that in 1930s,
can
40s,
you
right?
share? Can you share one or two things which impacted you most from the book? It's most read by the top CEOs, but I want to understand what you liked.
So you should think about his journey, right? He's very candid about his likes and dislikes. He said that he's a Suri, right? That goes at contrast to his sannyasis, right? And then when you look at the gurus that he had in his journey, he was ready to go and figure out who was the right guru for him, but he never lost touch with his old gurus. So he crafted a life in spirituality, but he kept taking on. For example, in 1930s, he flew back to India with a Ford automobile, with a driver and two photographers, and traveled from home to Calcutta and then went to the interiors of Calcutta looking for, if you will, miracle workers. And there was this lady who had not eaten for 8 years. There's another sadhu who does it. So he was a modernist, even though he was a yogi, right? He was in the traditions of which he followed. So he interpreted them in modern times, which I think is what leadership has to do. Very tumultuous, difficult times. You stay grounded and yet you adopt pro. And he drove the car back and shipped it back to US.
Yeah.
That I thought was pretty amazing. And there were examples he had of, I think in one village, the car was stuck in a ditch, right? So the villagers got together, picked it up and put it up. The amazing story, show it out. The fact that I find it relevant 100 years after he wrote it tells us
Yeah.
something about the timelessness of what he created. I felt like I was talking to him. And that's what I think most people find. They find something of value. I mean, there are lots of stories in there that some people might be fantastic, if you will. But he wrote it as if they were true. They were true to him. Right? You have to look at a step back and you say, okay, what out of this entire story? The fact that I read it like a thriller. I couldn't put it on for years. And I had that
Yeah.
on my shelf for about 10 years before I actually.
Most people who have been influenced by him are great entrepreneurs. They become great entrepreneurs because they're creating something, Kriya Yoga. So that's something to think about. Yeah. Anyway,
A part of a tradition, if you think, but you're also responsible for a creative. Your karma is what your karma is, but what you make of it is you.
yeah, I love that. It's something I will take home. It's a great thought. So wonderful. I want to ask a fun question. Who's the real boss? Is it you or your wife?
Honestly, when it comes to questions, it's a song.
Okay.
Yeah, because see, women are able to look at multiple dimensions at the same time. Men, we would not be where we are if I did not have her as the partner to sound off and have. In fact, a lot of people have said, "Why are you, single person?" Nothing. Everybody needs a sounding board, and you know that ego to such, separate trip, if you will.
Yeah.
And if you make great partners, lot of you look at Infosys, great partnership.
Yeah, this is definitely a partnership made in heaven. You've built such an amazing company, and it is proof of the fact that geography is not going to limit ambitions anymore. With leaders like you, with technology like AI, I think India is going to have a soaring, a golden future. With that, Alok Ramsesari, it's been a huge honor learning about you, your philosophy in life, and your incredible and keen insights into technology and the way market is moving. I'm very grateful to have hosted you. Thank you so much.